for you, was there an inspiration point for you where you decided that you were actually going to write the book?
Well, there was several things that happened and it occurred over the course of time. One of the things, the idea to write the book, actually sit down and write it, was because my father, he had died some years before 2022. He died in 1998. And before he died, I had written him a letter saying, Dad, you can live longer if you use the power of your mind. I had helped him to walk when he thought he was paralyzed, and he was surprised about that. But when it came time to dying, he couldn't move his hands. So he had my mom call me on the phone, and he was crying. And I said, what's wrong, Dad? And he said, I read your letter and you're such a good writer. You have to promise me that you'll be a writer. And I didn't find out until then that before he went to war, he was a reporter for a local newspaper in my hometown. And when he came back, he intended to study journalism, but he never got to. He had a large family. And so he made me promise I'd write a book. And then I'm walking on the beach 20 years later and in the Outer Banks in North Carolina, and I got swept out into the sea and I was drowning. And all of a sudden, this nice professor from a North Carolina college came out and put his hand out and saved me, right? And so I said, I think this is time, this is time, Dad, to start the process. But really, the content, I didn't know what it would be until I looked at TV, and it was in March 1st, 2022. The war in Ukraine had just started. And also we had the pandemic, and we had so many things going on in our society, and the school shootings in Uvalde came right after that. And so I said, I'm experienced, I'm knowledge, all these years of knowledge and experience, and I'm a researcher. And I know we can change the course of history. I know that as a historian, but first we have to look at it and see what to do. So that was my inspiration to say, it's time, Christine, to write it all down, what you know. So it's a personal memoir because I do share my experiences as a child and as a student nurse, going to the mental institution as an intern when I was 18 and what happened there, what happened in the operating room when I was a student as well. And it was a disaster. But I'm sure a lot of college students feel that way today, the same way, because you can't speak up for yourself or you're thrown out of the program. And that includes in sports programs. So at any rate, I decided to use my gifts and talents by sharing what I know personally, and also through my case stories of clients I've worked with who have succeeded. And I know in the reviews that people are loving that because I'm not talking to the people who are reading. I'm not talking at them, I'm talking to them. And they're liking also to know the history and what to do, that this is a call to action and you better start today, because without these skill sets, these mindful toughness skill sets, what will you do when you're waiting for your child to get care in the mental institution, or worse yet, in an ER, and there are no programs for your child, or you have to wait on a waiting list, for months, and it doesn't work, it doesn't really help. So that was my intention, both for my father, that inspiration, and I think he would be pleased now. I used him as a model because he was the director of the Police Athletic League, and so all I learned about sports was from him. And then also from this idea that, well, what about this little girl who was shot to death in Uvalde, and they had to identify her by the sneakers that she wore that day because there was nothing else left of her.